For the past 6 years, Andrea Bunker has enhanced her craft from her casting mentor and former boss, David Rubin, who is currently the president of the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences. Together, they consulted for HBO on many greenlit projects from Westworld to Succession. In addition to consulting, Andrea was the associate casting director on Big Little Lies, Sharp Objects, and various projects for Netflix, Hulu, Sony, Amazon, and Fox. Since 2008, Andrea has been the casting director to over 40 independent projects, feature films, shorts, commercials, and promos. And she's here today to give all of her advice to you all. So please welcome Andrea.
Did that work?
Hi. You did it.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. It
so
means
happy
so much to us and to all of our participants and all of these actors here. So thank you. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with our questions for Andrea and do a Q&A. Then we're going to go into the live reel critique where we look at a few of the submitted reels and Andrea is going to give live feedback on them so that everyone can benefit from that. And then we're going to finish up with audience questions.
Yes. Hello.
What about being a casting director drew you to the business and how did you get your start in casting?
I actually got my introduction to casting through meeting a casting director over coffee and getting a glimpse of that side of the business. I was actively pursuing acting. This was about 13, 14 years ago. And after that coffee lunch, I just kind of decided to send her, at the time it was I think a MySpace message, and I asked her, I was really intrigued with what you said. I felt like it kind of rang closer to a truth of what I want to pursue, but I had no idea about the process. So I asked her if I can step in and take a glimpse behind the scenes to see if it's something for me. And she took me in. I started with her the next day. But it was mostly like commercials and promos. And so that was my true introduction to casting. And then from there, I loved it. And so after a few months, I was like, okay, I want to do movies and TV. So just like actors, I did the whole like free interning, free work just to make those connections and relationships. I interned at 3 different casting offices throughout the week for a very long time just to learn the basics of casting. Until I could pretty much branch out and do my own stuff. So, yeah.
So most recently, casting director David Rubin was your boss and mentor before you branched out on your own. And with him, you worked on some of our favorite HBO shows. So can you talk about what that was like and also what were some of the biggest things you learned while working with him?
I learned everything, how I function now, how I even just organize everything now. Keep track of everything. It was all through our well-oiled machine that I worked and did with him. He was looking for an assistant, and it was just kind of a blind email. I applied, and then I got the interview, and he hired me through there. So he was very generous with. I didn't have a lot of office experience with direct people as an assistant or associate at the time. I really kind of just went out and improvised and started casting my own movies for friends and stuff. So it was really generous of him I was collecting so many casting director credits. It was nice for him to say, okay, you can come in and, I'll teach you more. So everything I do now is through him with, the process of how I search for actors, what I look for in actors, seeing, we'll talk about reels, but seeing kind of a foreshadow of what I'm watching in reels and expecting in the room and what does come from that, there is a link. I can watch reels and I can sometimes be so surprised with what comes into the room, and then sometimes I'm confirmed with what I expected. So kind of getting that to save time, because we're on such a time crunch. I can't take a chance on everybody. So I have to kind of already in my gut feel like, okay, I think this person has it, and then schedule them to come in. But I learned everything from patience, we're all in it together, kindness. I think in my 6-7 years with him, we've never yelled. We've never had a hissy fit of stress. We just really loved what we were doing and enjoyed it. And, so in so many ways, I grew from those 6 years specifically, even though I was like doing a lot of my own independent stuff before then.
So what exactly draws you to a person during a live audition? What about being in the room with them draws you to them?
Everything from, when they come in, the warmth, there's a level of awareness of how much, like the healthy amount of time to kind of introduce yourself, warm up the room, and then get ready for the scene. And then, the performance, it's always a performance. And I would always like have a chat with an actor after as well to get more of a sense of who they are. So I think just the healthy balance of kind of knowing that you're going in, not being so overly thankful for being in the room. I think really feeling like you belong there. I think when an actor is overly thankful, like thank you, it starts to make you feel like, oh, should you not be here? Like, are you not used to this? So I think, just being confident. And when you're nervous, I love when actors are open about that too. When they're just like, oh, I have nerves and stuff, like we can work through it together and just kind of chill for a bit before we jump in the scene. But it's everything. It's everything from the performance as an actor, and then everything before and after is just who you are as a person. Having a healthy dose of knowledge of what's too much. Like, don't overstay. Don't, it's just, here's what I'm showing you. Here's what, being prepared, and then just having a nice, healthy exit. I think all of that all around, yeah.
Can we go a little bit deeper into these audition room don'ts? Like, have there been any instances where you have loved an actor's audition and their performance, but something about their behavior in the room made you kind of rethink or be less inclined to cast them?
We luckily haven't had that experience too much. If I ever question what an actor's personality might be like, if I think they're a little too icy or cold or dismissive, I never shun them out, just because I don't know sometimes if it matches the role, if that was just their way of preparing and they didn't want to break from it. So I never judge them on that. But I'll start to get a sense, and, if they're really in the mix, I start to have conversations with fellow casting directors, actors that might have worked with them, a director I might know that worked with them. I start to get a sense of just like, hey, how are they to work with? And then overall, if everyone's like, he's fantastic, or she's so great, or she's so lovely, then that I'll piece it together myself, that like, okay, it was a choice in the room where she or he was having a bad day. So I'll never be too harsh with judging a person on that sense. But luckily, I think everyone's just so lovely. I haven't had anybody come in and just be nasty or unprofessional. That really just hasn't happened. It's been more of kind of just shut off, and there's like a wall. So then I can't gauge. I'm like, are you a difficult person or not? What am I sending to the director and producers? So that's my way of gauging. I think I just kind of go behind the curtains and start asking my own connections to see if they have a gauge on that person.
In addition to the whole audition process, there's also sort of the online etiquette and email process. So how do you like actors to get in touch with you? I mean, do you like when they follow up after an audition? Is there any email etiquette actors should be aware of?
Typically, no. Agents and managers they're usually who everyone's funneled through. I think they're starting to less and less follow up on feedback, which we appreciate, because we're so in the hustle of just like reading and narrowing down and discussing and moving on to the next role while those are narrowed down. And so it's hard. Every time we get feedback requests, I think agents and managers you start to build that relationship. Well, they'll, especially if we bring in the same actor like 5 times for different things, like they should just trust that they're on our radar. They either got it or they didn't. It's, you know what I mean? But if an agent or manager has a new client, I don't mind them following up and saying, hey, we just signed them. How were they in the room? I'm quicker to respond to that feedback versus a general, are they in the mix? Because if they're in the mix, you'll for sure hear from us. Like, we're not going to drop the ball on that. If, we want to make sure the actor's still available, connect with the agent and manager to make sure, if anything else comes up, keep us posted, because we don't want to lose them, because we're still figuring stuff out. But generally, I would say following up for feedback, and I don't think it's helpful, beneficial for casting to receive, because again, if you're in the mix, you'll hear from us. And if you're not, and you feel like you could have done better, I think that's a deeper conversation to have with your team, with your acting coach, with your agent and manager, to see where you feel you could have, excelled more.
Yeah. So how much of your work depends on seeking out new talent, and how much of your casting is based on talent that you've already worked with before, you already know?
It depends on the project for sure. When we start off with the leads, it's very much, the high caliber lists and stuff like that. And then when we start working towards, when we have those leads, the A-list stars attached, the most exciting part for casting is really kind of building the world to support them, like the tone. So if the A-list actor is a little bit more straight and narrowed, sometimes it's fun when we have to, if the world is supposed to be more comedic, we start finding more like comedic actors and character actors. So that's the best part for casting, is just doing all of those roles. And it depends. If we have enough time, we open it up and we really take our time to just discover like new people. I have my own database of actors that I've seen in shows, TV, whatever. And I'll start checking their avails to see if they'd be available to come and audition. And we can dig deep. We can really kind of just go far and wide if we have the time. And that's a luxury, because sometimes we don't. Sometimes the turnaround for these are, we need to get our favorites to the producers in 2 days. So in that case, we resort to actors that we just know can deliver. We resort to actors that we've had in the room in the previous project or in the past. I think it depends on the timing and the project, because there have been some sessions and some projects in particular roles where we literally bring in 30 actors for that one part, and that's it. But they're 30 solid people that we know can deliver, that are right for the part. And then from those 30, we'll like show the director like the 10 best reads. So it depends. And then sometimes for other parts, when we have more time to explore, we can just open it wider and really meet new people for those.
So how much of it, because you mentioned like bringing 10 of the best reads to the director, how much are you in conversation with the creative team of the show or the film beforehand about exactly what they're looking for? And like, how much are you really sticking to that versus widening their imagination a little bit? What's that process like?
It's always different. We do, especially for projects, specifically Big Little Lies, we had so many hands in the pot of, all the producers, Nicole, Reese, Bruna, Andrea, David, the director Jean-Marc, his partner Nathan. We all were like actively, our producers were suggesting people as well. It was so much of a collaboration, and it's so much conversation about the feel, the idea of the role, and then of course committing to that. And then we would stray away from it a little bit, to show them something new. And if after like the first batch of actors we show them, if they're really honed in on what their initial idea was, we kind of just let the experiment go of like, what about this and what about that? But sometimes they do, sometimes producers and directors, they get super excited, even more so when you bring them something they didn't expect and they love it. I think that's like so satisfying for everybody across the board. But yeah, I mean, a tone is set for sure with prototypes, like within phone conversations of what we should, like the dream team of like the type of actor that they would love to have for it, and then kind of just dancing around that and finding people that fill that wheelhouse.
So in terms of online presence, do you end up, we hear about like people's followers on Instagram influencing casting decisions, or so does that really affect your casting decision? And does someone's social media presence ever affect it negatively if they're like a little too political, or is there anything that could dissuade you once you're looking at their social media?
For me personally, no. But I can see how I've been hearing it more and more. You know, a lot of agents, managers, and actors will, like, one of the first things they'll mention, like, aside from what they've recently worked on, is how many followers they have, which to me is still shocking. I'm still not there yet, but it's something that's happening enough for people to feel like they have to say it. So I'm imagining a lot of like teen shows, like maybe, I don't know if that was like for Vampire Diaries or Teen Wolf and stuff like that. I think they do like to have people with a splash in social media, like TikTok or, you know, whatnot. It's not a world I've been a part of. I've never looked at followings. I'm just not into it at all yet. And I don't know, one day some of my arm will be twisted and I'll have to. I'm sure now that I'm on my own and a lot of these independent projects I'm working on, I'm sure that conversation is going to happen where the producer is going to say, oh, he has, you know, she has this many followers. There's eyes on them already. You know, they have a support system. So I can see that changing and happening, but I've been able to dodge it and just focus on the acting, which has been nice.
That is good to hear for a lot of actors out there, I'm sure. I mean, that's who we want to see on the screen, is the best person for the part, not the person with the most Twitter followers or Instagram followers or what have you. I would also love to ask you about people's websites. I mean, once you look at someone's reel, are you delving in further on their website, or are you just basing it off of that? And if you do look at a website, what information are you hoping to gain from it?
I do sometimes, if I have time, I'll look at websites. Not too much. And I don't know that I'm looking for anything specific when I do click on it, honestly. I just get a sense, in a way, I get a sense of just how professional people are. Like, I think I get more of like a satisfied, like, they know what they're doing, you know, like their professionals, clean, crisp, to the point, professional. It's not using 15 different fonts and words everywhere, and it's not a mess. I think every little thing just kind of reflects who you are professionally. And so with this reel collecting I've been doing, a lot of people do include their website, sometimes even just in the signature. And I have clicked on it quite a bit, not looking for anything more specific or anything. It's more so just that thought of, you know, this was really smart, or that was, you know, they're presenting themselves so well. Like, this is really clean, the photos are great. It doesn't go further than that, really, so far. But it's just so healthy, or it's so helpful to have the website there and handy, because you never know who might be looking for you. You never know. I might be watching a show and you pop up as a co-star in something, and I'm like, who is that? And you know what I mean? Just the more you're out there visibly, the more your face gets passed over. You know, it takes sometimes maybe 3 or 4 times for me to see your face if I've never met you, to really click and put a name to you permanently, and to say, oh, he or she is from this and that. So in any way, IMDb, your website, it's just good to kind of always have your likeness out there.
That's it's interesting to hear about how many times it takes you to put a face to a name, because I mean, we mentioned we've worked with 700 filmmakers so far in New York and LA, and we sort of like get that feeling of where, okay, this person was on this team and they were a cinematographer and they were this, and it's like a lot to keep in your head. So I can't even imagine. I feel like you have a much bigger list of people in your head, and how do you, I don't know, like, how do you get reminded of people? Is it just seeing them in a new project? Is it seeing their agent submit them or something? Or
oh yeah, it's all of it. A lot of it is for sure agent manager submissions. Every time I kind of see your face pop up in an email or breakdown, yeah, you know, there are people who have emailed me through this reel submission, and just a ton of familiar faces, because I'm like, I've seen you, and then through emails, I'm like, I feel like we've met, you know, and I'm just not fully sure. And one person I auditioned when I first started casting for a web series I did, I mean, probably in 2009, 2010. And through this reel submission, they emailed and we connected the dots. I'm like, we have met before, you know. So it's really nice to like reconnect with people in that sense. But you do have to stay kind of active to stay in people's minds, to just remain on people's radars in a sense. And I'll remember people from a show, like even a guest star, co-star thing, and I'll have to dig. I'm like, oh, there's that person that I loved. I can't remember their name. And I'll look up, you know, who they worked opposite or what that show was. And then I'll be able to hunt them down and find. But for the most part, I have a database of all of that. So I have my keywords. So if there's someone that, you know, I don't know, I'll have my keywords. So if I think of someone, I'll type it and just kind of keep until it clicks. I'm like, that's the one.
Is it possible for someone to get cast and get a substantial role without an agent?
Yes. It happens much more with younger talent. You know, you could be over 18 to play younger, but it has to be for a very specific part. I really haven't seen it happen too much otherwise, but this last HBO series, I hopped on with Carmen Cuba to associate with her on a Luca Guadagnino's HBO We Are Who We Are. It filmed in Italy. The lead girl and not the series regular, she came through me through Actors Access, and I had her send a self-tape, and she's never done anything before. She was mostly wanting to pursue a music career, and her self-tape was great, but she just met all the specs description-wise, and then her performance shined through. She ended up booking the part, and that was just directly through her and her mom. Her mom was like, this would be fun. And then all of a sudden she's coming out to LA for the director session, and then she got it. So in that sense, it could happen. For adults, I would say it's more challenging unless there's just something so specific, whether it's a language or, you know, everything has to kind of fall into place for us to open it wide and search outside of agents and managers.
Do you have any advice for actors that just feel like it's never going to happen for them?
I mean, it's going to happen. You know, the only thing you have real control over is your acting and the chops and studying, getting it, you know, because every time you showcase yourself, you know, I'm having a lot of people come through, and I think people rush too much to be seen and showcase themselves when they're not quite ready. And that can hurt you in a way. You know, we're very mindful that everyone needs to start out. But when I think if we're introduced to you at least 3 times, and each time you're just not quite there yet with the skills, we can slowly start to almost typecast you into the person that's just not ready. Does that make sense? Like, so there are some people I look at and I automatically think, okay, they're green. And you don't want to fall into that category. So you really kind of want to the one thing you have control over is getting your acting, you know, in a place that you're super proud of, in a place where you feel really confident in the work that you're doing, and then presenting yourself and making that presentation and presenting yourself in the most professional way, and that you're capable. That's the only thing you have control over. And then I think once you have that, things will fall into place. Don't get intimidated by the number of actors out here, because I can tell you it's just a numbers game. Like, the people that really put the time into studying and sharpening your skills, it's very few. So the competition really isn't that big, especially for whatever your age range is, and ethnicity, vibe, tone, all of that even narrows it even more. So if you just stick with it, you know, keep studying and like just sharpening your acting, like I feel confident that it happens for everybody in that sense. I really do. I really do. So I wouldn't worry. I wouldn't rush about, you know, feeling like you're not going to make it, feeling like you won't ever be a SAG actor, feeling like you'll never have an agent or manager. I think those are all just things that come to you once you really, really start honing who you are, your acting, and just showcasing yourself in the most professional light. All those things will just flock to you. Like, it will happen.
Do you have any tips? Because you mentioned, like, I think that's amazing advice about not getting typecast into the green actor, like, but how, I mean, what's your tip, I guess, for being sort of self-aware and like figuring out am I the green actor or am I the actor who's ready? I have a second part to that question, but I guess I'll start there.
Yeah, I think you find that, I think the most important thing an actor can do is finding a coach, a school, anything. Obviously, something that works with your budget, because I know that can get really annoying with, it's something else to pay for, but it's the most important thing to invest in, is finding a coach or someone that you really connect with. You love how they approach you. You love how they make you feel. I personally, when I was acting, I love people that were brutal to me. I love people that were very blunt and very just, look at me like, what were you thinking when you did that? I love that. But I know, a lot of actors, it's just not, it's so vulnerable and you're putting yourself out there. So to have that doesn't work. So audit as many classes as you can. When it clicks, take the class, try to find a connection with someone that you respect, who you feel has really good taste. Watch what, those coaches respond to. And if you agree, then okay, I can trust their taste. I can trust their opinion. So when they have their opinion towards you, you'll listen. And you'll say, oh, okay, I'm not seeing what they're seeing, but there's definitely something I need to work on because they're telling me something's off. So I think having that's the one thing you have control over. Again, it's your acting and then what coach you want to mentor you. Then that person can really help mold you and let you see things bluntly that maybe your mom isn't going to tell you or your best friend isn't going to tell you. And you need that person. And then they can tell you, I think, and just whoever you go to, let them know you want them to be completely honest. Because even though sometimes people say that, you can't always be honest because you don't want it to dissuade them from, growing. But whatever you can handle honesty-wise, make that very clear and verbal with your coach. Or if you do have an agent and manager, with them too. And just get those honest opinions about, does my reel suck? Does this scene, is this just horrendous? Should I get rid of it? I think, people are just so quick to say, good job, or yeah, sure. And then because they just don't have to deal with you again, So really find people that will want to help craft you, mold you, and chisel away at stuff that's the only way you'll know. I think that's, unless you have really that skill to look at your work and say, oof, this isn't my best work. And sometimes it's hard to see that. It's hard to see it because you so badly want the material already. You want it now. You want to be ready now. I think that's the hardest thing to realize, is that you just need to take time to work on it more and more.
So the follow-up for specifically younger actors, because you mentioned one of the easiest times to break in if you don't have an agent or manager is being when you're younger and maybe they're casting for teen roles or things like that. How do you balance not wanting to show yourself green versus, okay, maybe as a teen or as someone who can play a teen, they can see room for growth, or I need to get in right away, or whatever the thoughts may be?
I think that's a big thing to mention, is we always do see the room for growth. And that's why I think you should be mindful of when you put yourself out there to kind of, how do I say this? That's tricky because we do see the room for growth, but I think if it goes on more than 2, 3, 4 times, and each time there is no growth, then that is really when we start to think, okay, this person's just green. They're not going to quite get there, and we start to schedule them less. We start to really stop watching their reel often because we know what to expect. So I think I don't know. It's tricky. One more time with your question. What was it about
Well, I guess my question is, say you're 20 years old or something.
Yeah.
Or you're just out of college. You look really young. You could play 18. You could play 17 or something.
Mm.
How much should you be spending your time waiting and honing your craft versus should you just be I got to do this while I look, I could play a teen or something if that's the easiest time to sort of break in. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I see what you're saying. It's so hard because I think when you're at that stage and you can play younger, it's, you do just go for it and just do it. And how many times in life do you really want to sit back and wait till you feel ready? Because otherwise it'll never happen, you know? So I get that advice is a little hard to swallow, and so because you have to just kind of pick and choose, with moments to just go for it and moments to hone your craft and make sure that you're ready to present yourself. But if you're playing a certain age range and you feel like there's a limited time, if you're even 24 and you're still pulling off to play younger, to play 17, just go for it and do it. Especially if you really, I don't know, it's really hard to gauge. Like, there is no right way to say go for it and do it, and there's no right way to say hold back and don't even try because you're not ready, you know, because you learn from doing, you learn from going out there. So it's really kind of
both. You have to be,
you do
while you're auditioning. Right?
Yeah, you have to practice, and you do. And again, I think that's a conversation to have with your team and your coach, to make sure you're putting yourself out there in a way where we see the potential and we see, there's something there. They're not quite there yet. But I feel like sometimes I do see people present themselves when it's just so far off. You know, you're just like, oh, they have a long way to go and we just don't see it. They're incredibly green. That's when you need that team to tell you to, work on it more before you start going out presenting yourself. But if we can see it in you and it's there, and you have shots, you have chances to keep like working out with every office, all the different offices that are all around the US, those are all chances to go out and exercise your auditioning skills, your self-tape skills, preparing sides. So it's really when it lands to like one particular office, if it happens too often, too soon, just really kind of make sure you take your time to work on always improving for that office in particular.
Okay, so we are going to talk about, we're going to do some of the live critiques in a second, but first we want to know in general, what do you like to see in a reel? What is necessary to see in a reel, and what are some of the things that really sets them off?
It's just the acting. That is it, plain and simple. That's it. When I start to think, oh, the actor you're playing opposite is really weak, or when I start to think, oh, the quality is really bad, or when I start to think about those things, it's almost kind of like excuses in a way, because I realize then when I feel that way, I'll see a reel where you can tell it's all super low budget, very indie. The actor I'm focusing on is playing opposite people who are much weaker, so they're not getting a lot. But I'll finish the reel and come out of it thinking that actor was really good. And with everything up against that person, with quality, sound, everyone they're performing opposite, they still shined through and held their own in every scene. That impresses me. I'm like, they had so much stacked against them and they still outperformed all of that. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You if that's what you have and that's the best you have to work with, present it, because it's really about you and your skills. And I would say that's really it. And I could get into breaking it down and saying it's this and that, but at the end of the day, it's really just the acting.
So you'd prefer a reel with one really well acted scene rather than showing 5 versatile scenes?
Yeah. Yes, because I think it's smart to like quality over quantity, be mindful. Every scene should kind of showcase your reel doesn't have to be so you don't have to have so much of a range in a reel. If you're comfortable with one certain thing, don't feel obligated to say, I need to play the tough girl. Now I need to play this girl and this girl. Really think about what you excel in and you're comfortable with and it feels right, and focus on that. And if that's captured so strongly in one scene or 2 scenes, use that. And don't feel desperate to have to pull footage. And I did this project 4 years ago, and don't feel so desperate to have to create a reel, because the purpose of the reel, like the sole purpose, which I feel like people are forgetting, it's really just to show your acting and to showcase your ability, and that's it. And I think when you start getting lost in the desperation of like, I need to show that I worked in these 10 projects and you start scrambling to put things together, it's usually the performance isn't there. It starts to make me question. And when I'm casting something, I don't have time to take risks on someone new because I just don't have the time. And I have to be kind of selective with, the 10 people I can see in this half an hour slot. You want to present yourself in the reel in a way that makes me feel confident that like, okay, I feel like I'm taking a chance here because I haven't met you before, but what you've like presented feels like you know what you're doing and there's some control there, I'll take a chance. But I feel like when it's just too many clips that aren't elevating you as an actor, I let it go. Like, just let it go. You don't have to feel bad that you have one scene. Don't feel bad that you don't have anything yet, because now more than ever, I feel like casting is more open to watching one strong previous self-tape or one strong monologue that you recently did that you're so proud of. That if that's what you have right now to showcase your ability, then use it. And you can always just say like, hey, I have this clip to showcase myself while I'm building my reel, but I'd love to be considered, and I think that alone can get you in the door. The reel's purpose is to get you in the door. So,
do you prefer separate comedy and dramatic reels, or do you prefer to see them together?
Separate for sure. Yeah. So drama reel, comedy reel, and then whatever skills you have as well. If it's a stand-up reel, stunt work, it's best to have separate ones if you're able to.
Is there a particular way that people should have their reel edited? For example, should you start off with your headshot, name, and contact info, or go right into the first clip? Should there be a montage? Any of these little technical stuff that you can speak on?
No, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. I have my preferences, sure, but it doesn't make or break your skills. It doesn't matter. I prefer like your end card to have your photo and your agency info and contact info. If you don't have an agent manager, hopefully maybe just a link to your website. Ideally not your direct info, like your phone number. I've been seeing a lot of phone numbers and direct emails, as long as you're comfortable with it. But it doesn't matter where it goes. The only thing with montages I've been seeing too often is people leading in their reel with more than 10 seconds of just not speaking. Or sometimes it goes into 30 and 40 seconds before I even get a sense of them. Like, it's all just slow montages. And so just keep in mind that when we're watching it, we immediately kind of want to go into, what do you sound like? What's your tone? What's your vibe? Who are you? So especially with like Vimeo, sometimes it needs time to buffer. And I have to wait for those 30 seconds to go. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't skip this montage. I have to sit through it. So at the end of the day, it ultimately doesn't matter what you want to do. If it makes you happy to have that 10 second montage in the beginning, do it if you really feel so inclined. But we prefer to just jump right into who you are. Especially now, in a week and a half, I've watched 3,000 reels. So when it really just jumps right into a scene, I'm so grateful. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think it's specifically to reels too. Opening a scene where it's just focused on you. I think a big mistake people do as well is it jumps into a scene that has like 3+ people. And I have to try to figure out who you are in the scene, or you're just not really highlighted as strongly. Remember that the reels to showcase you. So sometimes I feel like reels tend to almost focus on other people. And again, I feel like it's an actor just wanting to use a scene just to say, I was in this, I did this. But make sure every scene showcases like your ability and your acting, because that's what it's all about. And then work your way towards emotion. If you have a reel, I would suggest not starting it with something that's incredibly angry and aggressive and, in your face. I think it's nice to work towards it. So if you have something that's a little bit more conversational, sometimes that is a great lead in to your ability. It's like a nice, like, okay, they're comfortable and they don't sound like they're acting, like they're just having like, they're natural and effortless and subtle. And then you can work towards, if you have something where you're yelling and throwing things and screaming or fighting somebody, you can work towards it and just not really start with that. But that's just something I've noticed more recently.
Yeah, I would be curious what other major or minor mistakes you see actors making in their reels over and over.
Yeah, I would say it's, I'm surprised at how many clips are in reels that really kind of just don't showcase them at their best. This is about you. There's one particular actress who I told her, you're opening your first 30 seconds. I didn't feel like it was a reel about you at all. It was a reel showcasing the guy playing opposite her. It was all about him. So I started looking him up and I researched. So, he should be so thankful that her reel, I looked him up and found his name and stuff. So I think be mindful of that. Everything, the reel is just about you. Other than that, it really hasn't. I think just grasping some people have such specific comedic reels. It's so wacky and it's so wild and out there. And I think just honing who you are. Like, I love that. Even though I don't cast those people too often, it's someone I would jot down because there's like they've embraced who they are and they're not trying to be something else. And they're just like, this is it, take it or leave it. And that's just so nice to see too. But yeah, I think, and being mindful of the scenes that you select, if it's pretty much the same tone, vibe, profession, if you're playing a secretary in this and then a secretary in that, just think about the range that you're showcasing. Do you need to have those two in your reel? If you just don't have too much to work with, then you should use it, because at least one benefit from it is it shows that like you've been on productions often, you know how to like professionally conduct yourself, and there's that benefit to it. But once you start collecting footage and you have stuff to choose from, let it go. We don't need to see you be a secretary more than once. Like, we know you can do it,
Speaking to that, you mentioned not really putting in things that don't really showcase you. If someone has like a line on a network TV show and they want to show that they were on that, is that like impressive to you that they've been on something that has a name, and yes, they can work on a set of this caliber or something rather than just a small indie short film? And like, if so, where in the reel would you want to see that like one line?
Sometimes those are cute. It depends on what the scene is, but I've been seeing those inserted kind of as like a exiting of the reel. It's like a cute little like last blurb thing. And then intro too, there's a nice creative way to quickly kind of like insert it before you have your name title or just before you start leading into longer scenes. I think it's really about the editing and creatively kind of just molding this like piece together in a creative way, so that you're not showcasing yourself as, I'm a one-liner, I'm a co-star, this is what I'm good for, you know what I mean? Because you want casting to see you for more too than that. So having a scene like that is beneficial. Like you said, sometimes it is nice to see like, oh, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, like they got through that casting process and they've worked with these professionals before. Like, there's the trust factor there that, the actor knows how to professionally conduct themselves on a high caliber set, but you don't want to like completely cover up. You don't want to overwhelm your reel with a bunch of one-liners, because you don't want to be seen as the one-liner, so just pick and choose and be mindful of that. It doesn't hurt to include, but I'd say steer away from having like more than 3 or 4 clips of you just doing one-liners here and there.
I can already see someone saying that they're re-editing their reel right now. Already
it's an art. It's such an art form. Sometimes, some people have it so much easier because they're booking this left and right, and so they just insert the stuff. But when you're starting out, you do need to get creative with, the editing or, the intro and how you exit the reel, and the scenes you select, whether it's even just 1 or 2. It's an art form to really kind of present yourself when you're still trying to build and grow.
Speaking of reels, we are going to start watching some of them live. and Andrea is going to talk about them afterwards. What worked, what can be strengthened.
Yeah.
So we hope
Yeah,
time that everyone can benefit from the general advice.
Our end of year award ceremony will be after lunch, so you are to go to the auditorium when you finish eating. Selden, you'll be on the stage. Class, Selden won the math contest. Let's have a round of applause. Before we get into fun and games, let's talk about our plans for summer. Please, please read. Very important, and it will help you next year. Try your very best to read every day and try to read at least one book a week. If you don't have a book handy, then read the newspaper.
So, are you a fan of Miss Andrews' films?
I mean, I've seen them. Who hasn't? Some of them are better than others.
Restricting your arm leg movement, not telling the truth.
It looks like we got a super fan on our hands.
I don't know what to call that thing inside of you, but water is
There's a piece of me. There's a piece of me that didn't belong.
Water is a way of making people whole again.
Hey, Judy.
What do you want?
I was worried. I've been calling, texting, looking for you. Where the fuck have you been?
What are you, my daddy?
What the fuck? I was worried.
I don't need you to worry about me.
You're out of control.
You want to stay out of control? What the fuck? You fucking jerk! You leave me the fuck alone!
He must have slipped something in there somehow.
We found traces of a date rape drug when we swabbed the inside of your cheek.
Do you think there's anything you can do about him?
We have 7 rape kits on him, including yours.
Will I remain anonymous?
No, we don't have to go
It's
there.
fine.
No.
We don't have enough, right? So come on.
Sure. I can't help. I'm really scared.
But we can do this together.
I can't. I have something I have to do today. Come alone and bring me the files. If you do not follow my directions exactly, harm will come to your father. I mean, like, meditation. You tried. No.
Thank you, Shara, for sharing your reel.
Yes, thank you, Shara. Okay, so we're going to give, after we hear Andrea's feedback, we're going to give each person whose reel is shared the chance to ask one follow-up question, and we can unmute you for that if you would like to. You can just, if you do have a question, do the raise hand feature. If it's your own reel, we can't have other people asking verbal questions for each one. And yeah.
Okay, awesome. So I watched this reel the other day in advance, and I asked you guys to showcase it specifically because I had such a hard time with feedback on this reel, and I appreciated that. I thought it was just really great that I didn't know what to advise Shara what to do, because I understood why she selected every scene to be showcased, because it all really had nice range and showed a different side to her. So I was going to leave it at that. And then, I was actually having a conversation with my husband about Shara's reel, and my husband's just like, but what is it really, like, what is it, how do you feel about her overall as the reel goes on? anyways, I started to feel like it starts off strong, not just because it was, it was CBS or anything like that, but the clips start off strong. And I would say once it hits Love is Blind, it starts to taper off. And I felt like Shara was such a good example of her work. She has such good range, and she's already making that transition into TV, and she's growing. And to feel proud of like graduating outside of the older stuff that you've worked on and feeling confident to let go. So in casting, I think if I was looking for someone and I was watching her reel, I would, and let's say I'm in a situation where I don't have time to take a chance. I'm like, okay, I have a day to see people. Like the turnaround is insane. I need to see people for this part. I would say that I would almost kind of lose confidence as the reel went on that Shara could do it, if that makes sense. I think if it was like short, sweet with her strongest stuff, which she very smartly put towards the front, I think if it ended there, I could trust, she has the skills, she's talented, she knows what she's doing. So I don't have to like really visually see her playing goth. I don't have to visually see her playing these exact other parts when, especially the quality wasn't helpful and the scene wasn't beneficial. I can, if I'm looking for it, I can imagine that she has that. Does that make sense? So I don't know. So it was a hard reel for me to give notes on because I understood why Shara chose every scene. It was so hard to suggest, let stuff go, just stick to the clips you're graduating onto and then build from there. But I think that would be my ultimate advice. I think leave your reel, short and sweet, power punch with like the stuff that the quality is getting better. She's so great. So I felt comfortable, doing this because I do like Shara. I've never met her before. But I can tell that like she is talented and I would trust to bring her in for something. But it's like, why take the chance? Why take the chance that another casting person is going to be like, no, and then taper off after, mostly I think after the Love is Blind scene for me is where I start to wonder, it's like the quality of stuff she's doing and everything. It's like, so just take that question mark away. Like, don't show it, everything you do, everything is a way, like even with casting, I don't show everything I've ever cast. Everything is a muscle. It's something I did this and I met these amazing people on this project and I got to exercise this muscle. So sometimes you can just use it for that purpose when you have enough clips. And then you can just start to let things go.
Shara, do you have one question?
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say thank you. This was incredible and amazing and very valuable. I just recut it recently because Plot Against America literally just aired. And it's exactly that throwing away stuff. So my question is, with certain things, should I take them off of my Actors Access? Like I have like the clip that's like cross-examining someone. Like
let that one go.
Let it go?
I would let that one go. I think, yeah, I think you can let that one go. I don't think it doesn't highlight you in the strongest, most beneficial way.
Cool.
So that interrogation scene, even though it's not that specifically, we see almost a hint of it from like your first scene when you're a juror,
Okay.
It's there. It's a hint. And I think that scene, it doesn't highlight you in the best way. Everything about it isn't like it's not elevating you. So I would say let it go. You don't have to have that specific role to showcase that you can do that part.
So go Love is Blind, chop it off.
Yeah, I like Love is Blind. I think from there it does show a contrast to the other stuff that you did. And it's still, you shine through in it. So I like that. And then from there on out, I feel like it's, and again, it wasn't easy to give you that note because at first but then the more I talked about it, I was just like, you could really just the idea of, I think actors need to be proud to let go of old work and see it as a way of like, I keep saying it, but see it as a way of like graduating out.
Thank you. This was so, so valuable.
I think that was a great lesson for everyone. Like we have to be ready to let go of the stuff that brought us to the level that we are right now. Like that all
right.
work now.
Yeah, like your reel is a highlight of what you've accomplished, and you don't need to showcase your journey as to what got you there, you know?
A bunch of people were asking how long a reel should be.
There's no minimum. Don't worry about that. Honestly,
like when will you just stop watching?
Yeah, it doesn't matter because I don't really sit through a lot of reels often. So it's really kind of just clicking through. So don't stress about time.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to start this this next reel. So it's in the chat box. If it was too choppy for you, just go with that and come back to us when you've finished.
I think we should replace the word rapist with raper. I would like for it to sound more like murderer, killer, traitor, and less like artist, therapist, florist. All right, let's get down to brass tacks here, Mr. Miller.
I see where you're going.
Feels like we need discipline. Tell Chad his niece is here. She's in a meeting. You sounded prettier on the phone. Was there a lot of teen violence where you grew up? People climbing in your windows, snatching your people up? Did you have to kiss?
I'm from Bel Air, so no.
So you do know the Fresh Prince. He also used to be a rapper.
What a neat hat! The bigger the hat, the crazier the girl. Like counting rings on an oak tree.
I have a slight resemblance to my ex-stepfather, so I'm going to need Xanax and wine, but that's manageable.
So I have a car. So
yeah, let's go.
Okay, great. Did you want to say anything to the artist?
I am the artist. Can you provide evidence to support the claim that you plus me equals us?
Are you mixing up, man?
Does E equal MC squared? Oh, no shit. The game where we become a closer couple by telling each other our deepest secret that we would normally never tell one another because the other person will go completely fucking bonkers was a bad idea.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's hideous.
Oh, that's it. Here.
That looks so ugly.
Okay, I have got next Wednesday.
I have a bikini wax on Tuesday.
How about tonight?
Okay, I can do tonight, but I'm on my period.
Great. 6 p.m.
6:15, and bring me candy.
You're very happy New Year. You're very attractive.
Hey, okay, let's just get that out there. All right. You're attractive.
Oh, thanks. I haven't had sex in a long time.
Let's just get personal right away, okay?
Yeah.
What's your favorite color?
Red.
Totally mine too. So hot. What's your favorite animal? Dog. Totally mine too. What kind? What happened? So, I'm wearing Wednesday on Thursday. Anywhere else, a guy like you would be thrilled to have Ashley be your girlfriend. No offense. But because you're like marginally famous, you think you have some obligation to cat around for all the other regular guys who envy the opportunity you've been given, like your dipshit uncle, for example. Bless you.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
That was really disgusting.
I know.
I hope you could still look at me and want to have sex with me after that disgusting fart I just made.
How does it make you feel?
Oh, I'm going feelings free while I'm in Los Angeles. Doctor's orders.
Thank you, Avital, for sharing your reel. So this reel is fantastic in a sense, especially it really lends a hand into the comedy reel portion of everything. And just how creative you can get with, sorry, I have a garbage truck outside. How creative you can get with your editing and showcasing yourself. You know, I thought it was almost, so like I said, I've watched thousands and thousands of reels, and I would say maybe this was the second or third reel that I've seen that got creative with like presenting their work. So I think more people can take a chance at that. And I thought it was long enough to showcase what she's able to showcase. Sometimes I see people cutting things together when it doesn't it doesn't allow you to breathe and really see the acting. And this was just a healthy, smart way of putting something together in a really fun, entertaining way. You know, I didn't even realize I sat through, I don't even know how many minutes it was or what, but it was just so much fun to watch. And it would get her in the door. Like, you know, if I was looking to audition, like I would watch that and I'd bring her in. And I guess that's the main point of a reel. So it works.
Avital, do you have a follow-up question?
That's so nice. How do I get in for your office? That's my only question. I appreciate it. I edit also, but my old managers had somebody like in-house do that. So I think it's a testament to like maybe having some distance to your own work. Yeah,
that's true too. Yeah, I would recommend everybody the most basic like iMovie the most basic editing tool. It's so easy to learn. I'm not a computer whiz, and I'm a master at iMovie now. Everybody should learn how to do it so you can cut up your own reel and get a version of what you want and then send it to some friends. You know, like Avital said, working on your own thing and, you know, editing your own sometimes is tricky because you lose a sense of like what's helpful and what's working and what's not working. So if you don't have the agent manager to do it for you from scratch, take a stab at it yourself to get it in a place where you're pretty happy with it and then pass it on to some friends for feedback. But it's just to show, especially with comedy, because there's so much with timing and pacing and tone. You can just really grab the reel. Like this is where you can like take it by the horns and just do what you want. And I thought this was such a good example of having fun with it.
Thank
and
you
doing
so much.
that. Yeah.
Nice.
Moving on to our next one. This is Laura's reel that I'm pasting in the chat box.
He grabbed me and threw me up against the wall and then pulled off my gold chain. And then he said, "Do what I say and you won't get hurt." And I didn't fight him because I was too afraid of the knife.
Sophie, you did exactly what you needed to do. You survived.
Look, Mom, I did it! You asked me to do it and I did it! I don't care about the paper. What? I can't hear you! I don't care about the paper! Okay. Forget the papers. No papers. What do you want? Yeah, and I get to dive out here.
Ooh, how's that going?
It's good.
Yeah?
I'm almost at 2 minutes.
Wow. You know, I always thought swimming was like really boring. Did you get bored?
No, I just think.
About what?
Nothing. We can't get it. We can't get it.
Just hold on for a minute.
Don't you get it? Now I'm going to be like Lindsay Patherdetsky.
Shara, she's a whore.
Yeah. A 7-month pregnant whore.
I'm going to get my check from Hank the last week of February.
Yeah, but we need to do this as soon as possible. The closer to the second trimester it gets, the more expensive it gets. And obviously, like, the more developed it is in there. I'm going to be like Lindsay Patherdetsky.
Okay, thank you, Laura. So I really enjoyed this reel. I thought it was a good example. Outside of the first clip that was Law and Order, I think outside of that it was like 3 projects, 3 short films. And it was just showing, even without the Law and Order clip, or that Law and Order clip could have been some, you know, an indie feature, whatever, she really shined through in each scene. Like Laura pretty much owned each scene. I thought she was consistent with her performance in each scene, no matter who it was opposite, no matter if it was a short film, indie feature, whatever, like she delivered and she performed. And I don't know, I finished watching it and I just really liked her a whole lot. And she's someone I would keep in mind from that because she's solid is how I would just say it. But.
Hi, Laura. Do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. That was really nerve-wracking, but really helpful. I guess my question would be, how do you fill out your, I mean, this has been my struggle for a while, is how you fill out your reel when you're not represented, and a lot of the projects that you're getting are student films, and you know, the quality of those can certainly vary.
Were all of those in your real student films?
They were, except for Law and Order. Yeah.
That's amazing. Like, I think that's such a good example for people to I mean, I think you have such a strong foot forward with, you picked student films that had good quality, you know, so that's there for you. But the most important thing is that you performed like so strongly in each one. So it doesn't need to be a studio movie. It doesn't need to be a Marvel movie. It doesn't need to be clips from all of that for me to know that you're talented. So I really enjoyed this because I think people stress out about that. You know, they're so obsessed with wanting to get that network emblem, that little logo here and there to show that they're legit. And it's like, that doesn't even matter. Like I'd probably schedule you over someone that has 5 network mediocre scenes. So I think that's something for everybody to learn from. And I don't know how much more, if you keep doing your thing, and if you keep booking more shorts, more indies, or, you know, do it, network with all the filmmakers and all the people out there and just do your part. And you don't have to, again, keep in mind that you don't have to showcase your whole journey of acting. So you don't have to show everything. But if you happen to do another short that's even better than what you have in your reel, replace something. You know, you can replace it. You don't have to overwhelm your reel with a bunch of clips, because how it is right now, I think, is just like a strong standalone. So I think what you have is a great foot forward to go to agents and managers for them to see what you're capable of.
Great. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. That really demonstrated what you were saying about if the acting's good, you don't really pay attention to anything else. I thought those were all high budget films when I was acting.
Yeah, I didn't know they were student films. That's amazing. Yeah, that's great.
And Laura, you have a beautiful voice. It was very relaxing.
I know, it was very soothing. It's kind of what I expected.
Hi, my name is Avantika Vandanapu. My height is 5 feet 7 inches, and I live in Los Angeles, California. Is it cool if, can I be alone?
No, this is where I eat lunch.
Can't you go somewhere else?
Nope.
You really can't cut me a break here.
Nope.
Listen, I'm going through something, and if you could be like a little human here.
Maybe I'm going through something.
It's not a maybe with me. I am.
Really? Because all I can see is you saying hi to people and grinning like a fucking idiot in the hallways. I'm sorry your mom died, but maybe if you didn't walk around pretending everything was cool, you wouldn't be crying in the dark where I eat my lunch.
Fuck you, Judd.
There she is, the real fucking Kelly Bassar. Yeah, I know your name.
I know yours too, Judd. Maybe you should pretend a little. Maybe you should lie a little instead of telling everybody exactly what you're thinking.
Like you?
Yes, Judd. Yes, like me. Because I'm trying to get some fucking things done. I'm trying to make the world a better place. The fuck are you doing?
I'm trying to eat my lunch. What are you trying to do?
I'm trying not to kill myself.
Great job, Avantika. So I love, it's just such a good example of, I don't know that Avantika had a reel. This is the one clip she chose to share to showcase herself. So imagining that she hasn't booked anything, imagining she doesn't have a reel that exists. I thought it was such a wonderful foot forward to showing her abilities. One thing I'm seeing a lot of now, which I would hold off, I don't know how I feel about it yet, but I'm seeing a lot of actors cut together a reel that's like back to back to back to back self-tape monologue clips. And I don't think that's the way to present yourself. I think choose like one solid performance. It doesn't have to be drama, something, it could be comedy, whatever your strong suit is. And use that to present yourself in place of like while you're building your reel. Because I think when you start throwing a bunch of links at casting directors that are all we start to lose interest and lose like a sense of, you don't put, it doesn't feel like you put thought into the clips you're sharing. You're just kind of just like vomiting out, here's stuff that I did at home. So be very selective, choose one. And if you really feel like you have to choose two, maybe, but this one clip from Avantika that she shared would get her in the door. Like I would want to meet her.
Avantika, do you have a question for a follow-up question? Yeah.
First of all, thank you so much for the feedback, Andrea. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, no issues.
Hi, I'm Avantika's mom.
Yeah, I just called her to ask a question because usually she knows, better too.
So I have a quick question, Andrea. Thank you very much for giving the feedback. When we are trying to change the headshots, and like we've been seen by a casting director sometimes in the room, right? So when you change the headshot and when you are trying to get the same artist back into the room, would you be normally able to recognize the changed headshot in those small boxes that you see, like who you have to get to the room, or how
the headshot? You mean like in the breakdown account, or the headshot that you physically bring into the room?
No, on the breakdown account, like when you try to pinpoint who you have to bring to the room, when you look at the screen and you have all the small boxes with the pictures in there. So you kind of get used to one picture that you know already, okay, we brought her in and all that, right?
Yeah. That's a really good point for sure. That's a really good question, because I don't know what the right answer is. I would say as long as you can, just keep the same photo. If there isn't anything drastic happening with her growth or her hair, why not just stay consistent with that image? Okay. It helps for sure. It's a quick click. It's, you take away the moment of, she looks familiar. Oh yeah, that's so-and-so. You take that moment away by just presenting the same photo, as long as you can. But if you have to switch, you have to switch. And at that point, I wouldn't make that a make it or break it situation for her career or with her relationship with offices and stuff. I wouldn't stress too much about that. But if you can't hold on to it and there isn't a dire need to change it, just don't change it. If she's getting good results too, if she's getting in the room and stuff, just let it be.
Well, that was all the live reels. That was amazing. I feel like I learned a lot from watching those. I'm not even an actor, but I want to cast everyone. And I think Molly's asking for someone's phone number too.
Speaking on that last reel, it is worth noting that we had a ton of actor submissions for the last Women's Weekend Film Challenge. And I think 2 people we cast were people who had really strong self-tapes that they submitted as their reel. And we were able to cast based on that. So, we've even seen it happen.
We're going to open it up to our first audience questions. Chrissy Rose asks, what are some good ways for actors who are not based in LA to develop professional relationships with LA casting directors like yourself?
That's a really good question. When I opened up my inbox to receive all of these reels, I am meeting a lot of great actors from Atlanta, from New York, and people that I really didn't know. So if I didn't do this, outreach and this search, I really kind of don't know how you grow. I think you get to a point where, because honestly, a lot of LA work, when we're doing, if it's filming in LA, especially when we're looking for those supporting parts, co-star, guest star, we do typically want to cast local. So we search for the people that are growing and building and, flourishing. We do focus on local LA talent. So it is hard sometimes to look elsewhere. And then if it's filming in Atlanta and we're looking for guest star supporting, smaller parts where it's so beneficial for actors to book because it helps them build their resume and experience, we typically hire an Atlanta casting director to do that. So I'll see all of those clips and I'll start to learn about those people. But outside of that, I don't ever, on the ground go to New York or go to Atlanta or Chicago. It's a tricky question. I think you just focus on growing within your community wherever you are, and just building your reel there and building all of your experience there. And with LA in particular, it's really kind of a move, I think, to physically be here and start auditioning. I think that's really it. And then if you have an agent and manager, they can always reach out to a casting director. If they have that relationship, they can say, hey, my client in New Orleans, she's going to be in LA. Can you sit down and have a general meeting with her? That's a way where we get to meet people outside of LA and from different countries and stuff. But outside of that, I wouldn't stress too much about building that relationship quite yet, unless you're making the move, and really just grow as much as you can with wherever you are.
What is the most helpful information that directors can give you to make your job easier? And is there anything that they're giving you, any questions or things that they're asking for that are making your job harder?
That's a tricky question. It depends. It depends on what the project is. Almost everybody I've ever worked with, I'm doing an indie movie right now, and the directors are so collaborative with ideas. So I don't know. I think it's just the basic specs of what you're looking for is always helpful. And then the only unhelpful thing sometimes with directors is just not having a sense. It's not their job to have the sense. That's what we're for and what agents are for. But I think just being so far off with the realistic ideas of what you can obtain, caliber wise with talent. I think that can be a challenge with casting when someone's reach for, I want Reese Witherspoon for my indie film, or when it's just so far off, it's hard to have to be that person that pulls you down from the clouds constantly and says, like, you can't get her, like she's never going to do. So I think that's the only challenge really when it comes to more independent stuff. But outside of that, I think if everyone's on the same page and has those honest conversations in advance, we start to get to a realistic place where we can really start to reach out towards people that we're excited about, but are obtainable. But yeah, so I think just having there are some directors that sometimes are hard to communicate with, in a sense where they're just so wrapped up with production stuff outside of casting. So I think just taking the time to every now and again just have a really great conversation with your casting director and just being on the same page with what expectations are. That's the most beneficial thing across the board.
Ariel is asking about your personal audition process. Like, do you do a lot of auditioning, or do you do a lot of improv in your auditions or cold reads? And what's your philosophy on auditioning?
I've never done cold reads. The only time I did, I worked with Christopher Guest, and we didn't really have a script in place. So that, and it's all, we need a lot of great improv actors. So it was really for that reason as well, but we also didn't have a script. So in that sense, it depends on the director and the project, but 98% of the time it's, we always have sides provided at least 2 days in advance for actors to prepare. So yeah, it's always sides to be prepared. And typically now it's obviously everything's going to change for who knows how long, but I love to do in-person auditions. Self-tape auditions hold the exact same weight. Don't ever feel like if you're out of town and have to submit a self-tape, or you're not, for whatever reason you can't come in person, don't feel like it's taking you out of the running at all, because I rewatch everything in the room from the room anyways. So it's like I'm watching self-tapes, it really doesn't matter. But yeah, so I think the process in general now it's going to change, but it was always just, sides prepared, come in. It doesn't matter to hold sides. I was never ever a stickler about that. That's also a technique to practice. Practice holding sides if you're in a place where you still get nervous, and you would, like everybody, any human person would forget something that they had memorized for 2 days. On the spot, you just forget stuff. So practice using sides, not referring to them, and then getting comfortable looking down every now and again.
Jamie Monahan asks a question for the other casting directors in the audience, or people that are thinking of transitioning to casting directing. You mentioned that you were an actor to begin with. Did you feel like you had to give up acting to become a casting director? Is it possible to do both?
I did. I cut it cold turkey and started interning full time. It's the same hustling as it is for the acting. Like I said, it's, I don't know how it is now, but at the time I had to just put myself out there and try to find offices that would take me in as a free intern, which really was, even back then, was really hard to find because you had to typically do it for school credit. But I think it's hard. I don't know anybody that balances acting with casting, because casting is such a full-time Monday to Friday job, and even weekends. So I could never imagine having an assistant pursuing acting that needs to step away for an audition. I couldn't imagine that. So I don't know if some offices do have it and make it work. But it seems hard to pursue both full force.
Do you feel like your acting background has made you a better casting director?
100%. Oh yeah. In every way, I think in every way of like the vibe we set forward in the office, like from my own experience, I knew I would never want to go into an office and see a casting director stressed out. I would never want to see her huffing and puffing and I got to take this call, take that. And so I learned it's not the actor's problem. Like, it's my job to create a safe, comfortable, calm environment and not show what I'm going through that day. And, I don't know. So I learned that so much from acting, and I would remember those moments going into the room and just really kind of putting out what I wish the experience was for me, what I loved, what I hated, and keeping that in mind through the audition process in my office. In that sense. And then even just from like, when I run sessions, I try to get a lot of takes in the room. I'll do what I can to avoid a callback pretty much. So I'll try to get all the best takes in one room. I'll sometimes do the scene like 5 times just to avoid like to the next day saying, oh, we didn't do it this way, or we forgot this, So it's like I don't have to bring the actor back to redo something that we could have just fixed the first time. So I think a lot about the trek and just being like, I don't want you to have to drive out here and find parking again, like to the smallest little detail. I think it's made me so thoughtful in that sense that I would have never thought of those things if I didn't pursue acting. Like all those things would just not really be a thought, So I think it's helped a lot, but yeah.
I love that. You can tell, like, even just the vibe that you're bringing here. I think people will feel comfortable, like, just bringing their natural self into the room, which is what you really seem to want to see.
100%. It doesn't benefit anybody for someone to be intimidated or nervous. Like, what's the point? It's, we want you. I know actors hear this all the time, and it's really, really so true though. But every actor that we schedule, that we see, like, we want you to book the part, because we don't want to go searching for months and months and months. Like we want the answer to happen now, So yeah, I think just creating a nice environment and actors feeling comfortable to screw up, like, and feeling comfortable to just do it over. I think that's the best for everybody. It doesn't make sense to make anyone feel nervous.
Well, I think that's all the time we have. We've even gone a little bit over. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today and to answer all of these questions.
Thanks for inviting me. This was so great.